I woke up in my tent at 3 a.m. to the sound of heavy breathing right beside my ear. Only there was nothing inside the tent with me. The sound was coming from outside, and a face pressed against the canvas. This happened to me and my younger brother in 2021 while wild camping in the Lake District. We're both outdoor types, used to hiking, camping, fishing. We've camped dozens of times before, but usually at proper campsites. This time, we decided to try wild camping near a quiet woodland clearing a couple miles from town. It was summer, but the air carried that damp chill you only get in the countryside. By midnight, the woods have gone completely silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. We'd eaten, shared a drink, and crashed out in our small two-man tent. Nothing felt off. Well, not until the middle of the night. At around 3 a.m, I woke to the sound of footsteps, slow, crunching on the damp ground outside. At first I thought it was an animal, a deer maybe, but the steps were too heavy, too deliberate. They circled the tent, crunch, pause, crunch, pause. My brother shifted in his sleeping bag. I whispered, "You hear that?" He nodded. Then it stopped, but that's when the breathing started. It was right next to my head, deep, ragged, like someone pressing their face against the thin fabric of the tent wall. I could feel the faint vibration of each exhale. I froze, every muscle locked. My brother whispered, "Who's out there?" The breathing shifted, moving slowly against the side of the tent, dragging with it the faintest scrape of cloth brushing against the canvas. Then, as clear as day, a finger dragged straight down the wall of the tent, a long, deliberate line from the top to the bottom, inches from my face. I wanted to scream. We sat there in silence, clutching our pocket knives and barely daring to breathe. The footsteps started again, circling, stopping, then more breathing, this time on my brother's side. He whispered, "It's right there." The worst moment was when the breathing stopped completely. For a full minute there was nothing, then the faint tug of the tent zipper, sliding just a few inches down, before snapping back up again. Whoever it was, they were testing it. We didn't move the rest of the night. We just sat there, knives ready, praying for daylight. When the first grey light filtered through the trees, we finally unzipped the tent. The clearing looked normal, quiet, empty, but then we saw the ground. Footprints, dozens of them, circling the tents in wild arcs, doubling back, sometimes stopping just inches from the canvas, and then leading away into the trees. The prints changed. The tread pattern disappeared. Bare feet. Whoever it was had walked off into the woods without shoes. We packed up in silence and just left. We didn't stop until we hit the main road. We never told our parents the full story. We just said the campsite felt sketchy. But I'll never forget that sound. The breathing, slow, deliberate, right against the fabric, and the thought that kept me awake for weeks after. How many times have they been standing there before that night, watching us sleep, without making a sound? Just after midnight, someone started knocking on our tent. Not once, not twice, over and over. Slow, deliberate knocks that moved from one side of the canvas to the other. And the worst part, we were camped miles from the nearest road. This happened to me and my girlfriend in 2019, when we decided to wild camp in the Yorkshire Dales. We'd been together for about a year, and she'd never camped outside a proper site before. I thought I'd impress her with my night under the stars. Just us, the tent, and nothing but rolling moors for miles. The day was perfect. Clear skies, a quiet hike, a fire as the sun went down. By 11, we were zipped inside the tent, listening to the wind ripple through the grass. We were completely alone, or so I thought. Around midnight, I woke to a sound that didn't belong. 3 knocks, soft, deliberate, right against the fabric of the tent. I held my breath, thinking I'd imagined it. Then it came again. 3 more knocks, this time on the opposite side. My girlfriend whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, the knocking moved. It circled the tent. Slow, steady, always 3 knocks, always pausing just long enough to let the silence settle before starting again. I unzipped my sleeping bag and reached for the torch. When I flicked it on, the knocks stopped. I shone the light around the thin nylon walls. Nothing but our shadows. Then, just as I switched the light off, the zipper twitched. Not down, just a little tug upwards, like someone was testing it. My girlfriend grabbed my arm so hard her nails dug in. We didn't say a word. The zipper held, but the knocking came back. Louder this time, faster, like fists slamming against the canvas from every direction. The whole tent shook. I shouted, "We're not alone out here!" My voice cracked in the dark. The knocking stopped instantly. For a few seconds, there was nothing but the sound of my girlfriend crying softly beside me. Then we heard the footsteps, slow, heavy, moving away in the grass. I unzipped the tent just enough to shine the torch through. The beam caught nothing but fog rolling low across the moor. No figures, no shadows, just emptiness. But the silence was worse than the knocking, because it felt like whoever, or whatever it was, hadn't gone far. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, we finally stepped outside. The grass was damp with dew, but around the tent were just patches of flattened earth, circles, places where someone had crouched low, close to the canvas. And leading away into the distance, we found a set of prints, wide, uneven, pressed deep into the soil. They weren't shoes, they were bare feet. Each step spaced out strangely, as if the person or thing had crawled on all fours, circling us for hours. We packed up immediately and left, hiking back without speaking. When we finally told the park ranger what happened, he shook his head and said we weren't the first to report knockings out on the moor, but no one ever figured out who or what was behind them. And even now, years later, if I close my eyes at night, I can still hear it. 3 slow knocks moving around me, waiting for me to open the zipper. At 3 a.m, my mate shook me awake. Through the thin mesh of our tent, I saw him, a man on all fours, crawling slowly across the grass towards us. This happened to me and my friend Callum in 2020, when we were wild camping on Dartmoor. We picked a quiet clearing a mile or so off trail. Nothing but open moorland and scattered stones around us. It was late autumn, cold, damp, the kind of night you zip your bag up to your nose just to keep the chill out. We'd hiked all day, cooked some food and then crashed early. No one knew exactly where we were and that was kind of the point. We wanted isolation, but isolation cuts both ways. Sometime after 3 a.m, Callum shook me awake. His face was pale in the moonlight bleeding through the tent fabric. "Don't make a sound," he whispered. At first, I thought he was just winding me up. Then I heard it. A faint scraping sound, grass rustling, slow and steady. I turned my head to the mesh window and froze. There was a figure about 20 feet away, on all fours, crawling. Not quickly, not stumbling, but slow, deliberate. Every few feet it would stop, head raised, watching. Then it would lower again and drag itself closer. We lay there in silence, listening to the sound of his palms slapping the wet grass and knees grinding against the soil. The moonlight caught his hands, pale, dirt-caked, fingers bent at odd angles. When he got within 10 feet, he stopped completely. I could hear him breathing. It was wet, ragged. Then, slowly, he tilted his head back and looked straight at our tent. Even from that distance, I could see his mouth was open far too wide, teeth glinting in the light. We didn't move, didn't speak. That's when he started crawling faster. The sound of his palms slapping the ground grew louder, closer. The tent shook as he brushed past one side. Then came the tugging. Our tent poles bent as his hands dragged down the canvas, tracing slow lines across the thin fabric. He circled us once, then crouched directly by the entrance. The zipper moved half an inch, stopped, and another half inch. Callum lunged forward and slapped his hand against the fabric, screaming. The figure froze, and then silence. We sat there, holding our breath, knives in hand, waiting. After what felt like hours, the first grey light seeped into the sky. When we finally dared to unzip the tent, the clearing was empty, but the ground told a different story. Clawing tracks, clear as day, deep grooves where hands and knees had pressed into the soil. They circled the tent again and again, and about 20 feet away, the tracks just stopped. No footprints walking away, no signs of which direction he'd gone, just nothing. We packed up in silence and left. We told a farmer on the edge of the moor what we'd seen. He frowned and then muttered, "You boys shouldn't be camping up there. People go missing on that moor." I still don't know what we saw that night, but I'll never forget the sound of it crawling through the grass, deliberate, patient, like it had all the time in the world.